Hey everyone, Duke Nougat 3D here, and yes, it's another one of these videos, and I apologize if they are becoming ad nauseum at this point, but I must confess these masks have a lot of secrets to them that I am slowly discovering as I continue researching, and this one quite takes the cake in terms of discoveries I've made regarding the AT, because this one's going to be mostly focused on the extremely rare size medium Type B Akron-Tissot that I have, because as you may notice from the condition that I went ahead and decided to not boil it, but I ran it under some scalding hot water, and with very surgical precision dexterity, I carefully pried the facepiece open, mainly because I wanted to remove the flutter valve guard to remove rust and restore it, but other than that, I didn't intend to do much for this, and I was very careful not to destroy anything, but I discovered many things that made this AT even more interesting than I imagined. This thing was literally a ball of secrets waiting to be unfolded. So before I get into what I discovered about this AT, I'd like to cover some facts that I may have gotten incorrect in the last video. For one thing, that it has been recently discovered that the ATs were not produced, or assembled rather, at the gas defense plant in Long Island, New York. They were actually assembled at the Hero Manufacturing Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I do believe a lot of ATs were sent to the gas defense plant for testing and procurement, but as far as actual final assembly, all of the ATs were assembled at Hero Manufacturing. And furthermore, only about 197,000 ATs were completed in total, but there were over 337, I think, thousand face pieces completed. So there were parts capable of producing well over 330,000 ATs, but only about 190,000 were produced for actual testing. Also, one thing that I have also incorrectly stated in the last video is that the AT's contract actually began on July 1st, 1918, not June 11th. So forgive me on that part, it was kind of an easy misconception to make, which also means that my Type A is pretty much even more so pre-AT contract, because as you recall, it does not have the AT stamp, and it could almost be considered an American Tissot at this point. And more about the Type A that I may not have mentioned in my last review is that they are actually not black rubber. Only the Type Bs, from my understanding, are black rubber, but the Type As were a calendared red-brown gum rubber. But anyways, that's about everything I believe that I got wrong in the last facts video. Now onto this mask. So, as you all know, Akron-Tissots use the standard 1:3 size sort of British sizing system, where it went from 1 being the smallest to 5 being the largest, whereas this one for a little while were stamped with a size medium. And now I can defer that this is a very early feature on Type Bs, because as this Type B was unfolded, I uncovered the chin markings. As you can see, AT for Akron-Tissot, mold number 22 for a Type B face blank, and then interesting thing here, this is a 3-digit date code referring to the day of the year. Most of the time, ATs, most production Type Bs will have a stamp, like even the Type A, my Type A has a stamp like this, where it is a 4-digit code where the first two numbers indicate the last two numbers of the year, and usually being 18 for 1918, and then the last two numbers will indicate the week of the year. For instance, 1845 would defer that it is the 45th week of 1918, putting it somewhere in November for production dates. This one, on the other hand, is stamped with a 3-digit code, as I said, referring to a day out of the year, like the day of the year. So this is 220, so that would put this at a production of August 7th, or at least it was assembled on August 7th, 1918. So this is a fairly early Type B face piece, and that would really lead me to defer that, I keep saying defer, to realize that the small, medium, large base stamps were a very early feature on Type Bs. They may have been trying to implement that early on when they developed the Type B, but they were ultimately rejected for whatever reason. So kind of an interesting thing there. Again, this is mostly speculation. They could have been using the small, medium, large base sizing system much later, but as far as I know, only early Type Bs have this small, medium, large sizing system. And just another close-up on the marking in case you didn't see it. And then up here, I uncovered the production lot. Usually these serial codes are actually a production lot, and I don't fully understand them, but I think what this means is the the H refers to 100 and the T refers to 1,000, and so 270,338, which means this is the specific number of face blanks produced. This is the 270,338th AT face blank produced in August 7th of 1918. So very interesting to note about that. And also, there are some things to see on the inside, which hopefully I'll be able to. Very precarious. It's still very crumpled up as it is, but I've managed to open it enough to the point where I can show it off for you guys. First thing to notice here. Notice on most ATs, the stitching for the harness tabs, as you can see, the harness is sewn onto the mask, but on most cases, the stitching goes all the way through the rubber. This was how it was done on the Type A's and much of the later Type B's, but for some of these early Type B's, for whatever reason, I've actually seen this in photographs of internal views of the Type B and external photographs, the glue on the harness tab separately. So what they do is once they make the harness, they sew these fabric tabs to it and layer them all together with glue. And once the face blank is fully cured and they're applying the stockinette layer, or it's given a semi. I don't know if the face blanks are cured with the harnesses intact. I know most of the time they aren't. So, and that one photo I have of assembled face blanks is actually my cover photo for my channel of face blanks being inspected either at the probably at the Hero manufacturing plant, or either possibly Long Island, New York at the gas defense plant, but it's more than likely at Hero, as stated before. It's usually what they'll have is they'll have the harness tabs, like the little fabric patches, already assembled and glued into the mask. But in this case, with some of these early Type B's, those are just pre-sewn on and then glued on to the mask separately, so there's no stitching going through the rubber, which is kind of an ingenious idea, and I'm not sure why they didn't go with it, and they just went, I guess it was more secure to have the harnesses stitched through the rubber, but it was not conducive to the longevity of the rubber, so bit of a weird thing to notice, but again, also a very rare feature. This is the only Type B that we know of that has no stitching through the harness tabs, and also the only existing Type B that has a 3-digit size stamp, date stamp, and also the only known Type B that have a small, medium, and large size stamp. So this is, all in all, an extremely rare assortment of features on an Akron-Tissot, on an already very rare mask. But anyhow, getting on to the internal view, hopefully you can see it. You can see the, I might need to get a flashlight or something. I'm going to be able to hold it upside down. Give me a minute, folks. I apologize for this. I need to get a flashlight in order to show that off to you guys better. I don't normally go off camera and get things on reviews, but this is more about information and history rather than being presentable. So let me get this lamp on. So hopefully you can see inside the face blank there. You can see the stamps present on the deflector tubes, which are in remarkable condition, even as dilapidated as they are. And you can see the chin rest. You can also see the rubber band present around the bottom of the deflector tubes where the wire and tape is. That rubber band would be covering the wire and tape. And the rubber base for the chin rest and this rubber band are both made out of red-brown gum rubber, whereas the deflectors and the rest of the face piece is made out of black rubber, as you could probably see. And I know it looks really brown on the inside, but this is actually residual dirt and blooming that stuck to the rubber, because when these masks were made, they were basically coated in talcum powder to prevent them from sticking together. And so they didn't normally clean that off, and so there's a lot of residual talcum powder and blooming left over. And also you may notice that the chin rest, which actually it's broken off, I have the chin rest still, it's in a jar with a bunch of other AT crumbs, but the sponge rubber portion of the chin rest is actually cream colored on this early Type B, and normally they're red. So very interesting. Even my Type A had a red one, but this one is cream colored for whatever reason. And also, I don't know if the camera will pick this up. It's a very weird angle, so forgive me. I'll try and pry it open a little bit to try and get a view in here, but if you could sort of see that, hopefully you can, there is a chin seam. This is by far the most shocking thing that I've discovered about the Type B, is that they were not in fact dip molded. I've always said in all my reviews that the Type B's were dip molded, but this one, as you can see, excuse me, if you could sort of see, there is a center line down the middle bordered by two greenish brown stripes, and that in fact is cement and a reinforcing strip, meaning that the rubber was built on a these face blanks were built on a flat curing form, and they were basically assembled at the chin. They were given a chin seam and given a final cure. And the reason it's so smooth inside there is because the process of the curing, like when it was cured on the form, it sort of flattened all that out to a very smooth finish. And so I'm not entirely sure if any Type Bs were dip molded at this point. It may just be these early ones. If I had to make a guess, if there were any production dip molded Type Bs, they might have been later production, maybe around like September or October of 1918 and onwards. But this August produced example has a chin seam similar to the Type A, which is very peculiar considering every other part of it, I mean, aside from the markings and the harness tabs, are identical to a normal Type B. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out. Very interesting facts and very new discoveries about the Type B that I didn't formally realize, and just I'm really getting so close to piecing this all together. And if anyone else has any information out there or resources, I'd be happy to listen to them. Feel free to talk about them to me, because I am still, this is basically my life's work at this point, is researching everything about this mask. I'm actually setting up work with Moulage to be reproducing them, and we are probably going to be dip molding the face blanks instead of, you know, doing chin seams, since we don't have access to raw stock rubber. But, and again, they might have actually done dip molded ATs eventually, but again, that's all up in the air at this point, and I don't really have any concrete evidence to if the Type Bs were eventually dip molded, or if dip molded ATs were even wide scale production or just experimental. But anyhow, that's really all I have to say on the matter. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned a thing or two. Again, I'm still kind of, anything I learn about the AT or my physical examples, I will report on and probably make videos on, so I'll just keep you all posted. This is, again, sorry I haven't been making a lot of other videos. This has been my focus for the past few weeks, and so I hope you don't mind me doing this. So anyways, before I ramble on any further, if you have any comments, questions, corrections, or concerns, drop them down in the comments below. I'm Duke Nougat 3D, and I'll see you all later.